I was talking to a good friend of mine today who was asking me my position on the financial markets. Markets have rebounded. The Dow Jones, the NASDAQ has rebounded to almost the levels before coronavirus broke out. The reason behind this is because, frankly, you just pumped $6 trillion into the system. That is inflating these investment vehicles. A lot of that money might end up, regardless of what they tell you, in the hands of people who don't necessarily need it. And this swelling pile of cash, this swelling pile of numbers and zeros after it, has to be invested. And they are looking for vehicles that will maintain themselves to some degree. And the US stock market is still probably the best game in the world because you have very productive businesses. So if you own shares of McDonald's, those will always have value because this is a vehicle to deliver food at a cheap price that people desire. And people are bidding these shares up due to the fact that they just have swelling piles of cash. They have to find some avenue for them. I'm not even sure that this is necessarily due to the fact that there isn't an imminent coronavirus vaccine. That doesn't seem necessarily plausible to me, but also the fact that the media narrative of the coronavirus is definitely overblown because it's orange man bad. The goal to get Trump out of office belies the fact that the coronavirus infection the pandemic might not be as serious as being portrayed, and perhaps some people in the know are aware of this. The other thing is that because the US, and this goes hand in hand, because the US is printing so much currency and we have the world's reserve currency, which gives us the ability to do this. If you're Venezuela, the only thing that you do is you inflate your currency to all hell, and any savings that people have just disappears because it's worth nothing. But because the US has the ability to spread those dollars out and everybody wants dollars and everybody's willing to accept them, the inflation will happen at a more gradual rate. Nevertheless, you cannot help but pump money into the system and not see asset prices rise. Not help but see, unless you have an increased means of production, see the price of goods start to increase. Now, the average citizen, they're being paid to sit on their asses and not do anything productive because the governors are so fearful of the coronavirus. Let's just go along with that narrative. The unfortunate fact is that when you produce nothing, money must be exchanged for goods and services. And when nothing is being produced, the value of money becomes zero. So the other thing that I told him, point number 2, is cryptocurrency. There's 2 very good reasons to invest in cryptocurrency. Number 1, the time that the US has as the world's reserve currency might come to an end. It's very difficult to continue to print money at this rate and not have people lose faith in the dollar. The one thing about cryptocurrency, for example, Bitcoin, there's a limited and fixed supply of it. So you cannot inflate it because the supply is fixed. So Bitcoin is already being used as a digital store of value that has some inherent worth, actually, because of all the electricity that's needed to mine it. I'm not going to get into that aspect of it, but it does cost something to produce the amount of Bitcoin that is currently available. The other thing is, because it can't be inflated, people will have more faith that the value will maintain itself. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be worth something because in the future, because people still have to accept it, and it hasn't reached worldwide acceptance or anything like this. But as I see it, the United States is in an internal civil war with citizens fighting against the system, avidly trying to tear down the most productive nation on the face of the earth, the fairest nation, because they see inequity. And of course, there's going to be inequity in any system because you cannot control people from out-competing one another. If I want to work 15 hours a day and you want to work 4 hours a day, I'm out competing you in terms of gaining resources. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to have a better life, but in terms of garnering more resources, I am able to outcompete somebody. And you cannot legislate for that. So you cannot legislate away inequity. But nevertheless, these people have it in their minds that inequity is the result of an unfair system. And they want total equity, and they are trying to tear it down, and they have the media and the politicians on the left behind them. And the people on the right really aren't that good at standing up for things until things will eventually turn violent. And you're going to see a downturn potentially in the United States. The US dollar, already questionable as the world's official store of value, might be eviscerated. And you are going to see a massive drop in terms of what your dollars will buy you around the world. So this is another potential moment to invest in Bitcoin. Point number 3, you're also seeing property and people that own property that are giving their tenants a break on the rent, commercial real estate, for example, because the tenants are unable to have income because the states are shutting them down. As this continues, the value of commercial real estate will drop enormously in value because you can't get rent from anybody because, again, we're not being productive. So this coronavirus is being politicized to an absurd degree. It's already endemic within the system and we're just destroying the United States fiscally, on a moral level, and on a political level. Nothing good is going on right now there. So you might want to take out a little insurance policy, put a little bit of your money into crypto, aka Bitcoin, something that is officially recognized around the world as a potential store of value. Forget all the other coins, but definitely you might want to consider putting a little bit of money away in Bitcoin. The US market is very, very high, but that's because you're just pumping it up with all this money that's being printed, and that money has to find a home. That might stay that way because people are going to continue to put their money into the stock market. But the commercial real estate market will plunge eventually, and you're going to see more and more demand for an insurance policy, a store of value, which will be digital. This is the future, so maybe you want to consider buying some Bitcoins. Sincerely hope this little economic, social lesson had some value for you. If it does, please thumb up the video, share this with friends, please share it, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Peace and blessings to everybody out there.